Welcome to Two Hypnotherapists Talking with me, Denise Mejia, in Delaware, USA.
And me, Martin Ferber, in Preston, UK.
This weekly podcast is for anyone and everyone who'd like to know more about the fascinating subject of hypnosis and the benefits it offers.
I'm a clinical hypnotherapist and psychotherapist.
I'm a retired medical doctor turned consulting hypnotist.
We are Two Hypnotherapists Talking.
So let's get on with the episode. Today, we're joined by Dr. Eugenia Andrews, who holds a doctorate in psychology and is a life coach and clinical hypnotherapist. Welcome, Eugenia. I forgot to say, and you're joining us from Texas.
That's right.
Which is great.
Yes.
And
Yes.
you could have joined us from Athens because you spend a good deal of time there too. So
I am actually from Athens, Greece. I'm originally from Athens. Yes.
Yes. So what are you going to talk to us today about?
Oh, my favorite subject. How to help clients have healthier habits, have the life they want, and have the weight they want, the figure they want, and most of all, be happy with how they look, how they feel, and who they are.
Great.
So we're talking more specifically about releasing weight, and the primary and most important key is how to keep it off.
Yes,
absolutely. That is the key thing, keeping the weight off.
Yeah. However, I do think that once people start to lose and they start to feel happier, it makes it so much easier to keep going. I think that so. Do you have clients come back to you because they've not been able to maintain it, or do you have an ongoing program that helps them maintain their happiness level?
And that's part of my own story, if I may interject.
Oh, please. Yes. Please. How did you get there?
Yeah, the way I became a hypnotherapist was because when I started my practice in the 80s, I had the fear of public speaking, and I was getting invited to be speaking in front of conferences and various networking meetings, and I would get kind of panicky, and so I decided to seek hypnotherapy here in Texas. Actually, that was after graduate school, and that helped immensely. And eventually, when I had my daughter, I gained 40 pounds, and I sought out hypnosis, and I kept the weight off until the pandemic, when I gained, and she's 30, so she just got married in September. And
congratulations!
Thank you. Until I gained about 30 pounds, because I got very busy. I started working globally with all over the world. I trained 4 other hypnotherapists, and it was even forgetting to eat and drink water, and then I will eat a big meal at night,
right,
and usually sugary things or fast food. And so my practice tripled during the pandemic, and so I decided to do something about it, because my daughter was getting married September 1st, and I needed to lose the weight. I sought hypnosis again. I also did self-hypnosis with myself, and I lost 30 pounds easily. And since then, I have lost another 7 pounds. And I am now at my, the weight I carried in my early 40s. So
excellent, excellent.
Yes.
So, but just back up a little bit more backstory, please. When did you first encounter hypnosis? Did you already know it was a useful modality, and that's why you looked for it, or were you looking for a cure? Were you looking for help with your weight originally, and then found hypnosis?
So, when I was in graduate school, I went to school at the University of Wisconsin in Milwaukee, and Milton Erickson is from Wisconsin, and some of his proteges and people he trained, hypnotherapists, came to graduate school and did a 3-day seminar in hypnosis. And I was thrilled, and I was very intrigued. So I decided this is something I might want to pursue down the line, in addition to my counseling that I was starting to do. And so when one day I opened Time magazine at the dorm, and I saw actually on the cover, Frank Monahan, who is was a hypnotherapist here in Texas, who gave me the hypnosis actually for the fear of public speaking. He was Man of the Year. And so that's when I moved to Texas, I sought him out. And, you know, fear of public speaking is the second most severe fear after fear of death in the world. So I think, though, for me, the fear of gaining weight was for a long time a major fear. And it is for my clients, the fear of gaining weight, you know.
Now moving forward in time again, so you've just successfully gotten rid of the extra weight that you gained, as many of us did during the pandemic.
The COVID kilos.
Yes, exactly. Do you feel that you're working as much and are you less stressed because you're thinner, or are you have things smoothed out in your business? Because the startup when you're expanding globally is very stressful too. Do you feel like you've got more energy?
Oh, I feel like before I had my kids. I feel so wonderful. I feel like I did when I was a college student. I'm at my best, and certainly I'm not by any means, you know, a young person. Here is what I experience, and I see my clients experience. First of all, I teach them through hypnosis with hypnotic suggestions how to do that, how to balance their life. So how to get new habits to balance life at work and work. So what I did is I learned and taught myself, and through also self-hypnosis, I also hired a hypnotherapist. I'm not going to lie. So you can never beat having a mentor, no matter how much you know. So my hypnotherapist also made recordings, and I listened to them regularly. And so what I did is I created a life-work balance. I started working less, playing more, and being more grounded into my core being, because I'm a playful person and I'm a joyful person by the way I was born. My DNA is that. And so I got back to my core being. That was one. And the other is I let go of the thought of food. I started focusing on other things: family, friends, my work, my clients, my hobbies. I started going to the gym. I started lifting weights, but I was not doing it as an obligation. I was doing it and having fun. I started taking dance lessons. In fact, I started taking ballroom dancing. And I think that's the greater even than gym for me. And that was a lot of fun. So the thoughts of food disappeared. So, and here's what I teach my clients through hypnosis, actually. First of all, through hypnosis, we find out the root cause. What is when people did they start gaining weight? And some of them have started in childhood. And the reason that was perpetuated, that it continued in adulthood. And we find out what's the secondary gain. There's always a gain, but it's secondary. It's not obvious that, and I use my psychology background for that. It's not as obvious to people as to why they are overeating, but through hypnosis, they come to understand the secondary gain. And if I may say a very simple example, the secondary gain may be the love that my parents gave us and the attention when we finished our plate, or that connection that we have with our parents still in our heads, which is the subconscious mind, actually. Right. And so we feel that if we don't finish the plate, we're going to lose that love.
Yeah, or perhaps when parents have used food as a reward, you know, you do well at school, you get a big bag of sweets, or, you know, you've
An extra ice cream.
yeah, an extra ice cream, or you've cut your knee, there's a piece of cake. So, you know, parents, if they've overly used food as a reward, that can, you know, people associate that in their subconscious with.
And there are so many layers for those parents as to why people that came out of the war or out of the depression. So there's so many things that can affect it. So Eugenia, how do you, when a client first comes to you, you do group work or individual work?
I do both now. I'm launching groups online, but I do after now I've been doing individual work.
And mostly it's online. I know you do see people in person as well, but it's mostly online
I do.
now.
I have 2 offices in Fort Worth and Southlake here in Texas.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah. So when somebody first comes to you and says, I've been 50 pounds overweight for the last 25 years, what's the first thing you bring up to them? What's the first suggestion you have for them?
So
it doesn't have to be a hypnotic suggestion. It can be a regular suggestion.
Right. I don't even do a suggestion right away. I don't give a suggestion. I ask them, what do they think? What do they think has happened? And I ask them more, I get their story. So the story of everyone is very sacred. And what I do, hypnosis, is spiritual work, basically. It goes straight into your soul and your heart and your core being and your major secrets that you may have not even admitted to yourself. So in many ways, this is beyond weight loss. And I believe that's how hypnosis is, because I work with 35 other issues. So you have to, I feel very honored to be working with that client who tells me that they have been overweight for the last 50 years. And I like to know their story. What is their take on it? Why they think they gained the weight? How they have been living? I also get some background story about their lives. You know, their hobbies, their joys, their losses. Loss is very important because grief and loss is one of the primary causes of people getting into unhealthy habits, like overeating, smoking. And so with a lot of respect and a lot of compassion, I ask questions to find out more of their story. And what is that they think they, first of all, what they've been doing. Did they go on diets? Most of them, yes, they have tried every diet in the book. Or did they use hypnosis before? Very few have, but you find people who have.
Yep.
And it has worked for them. Yeah, it has worked for them, but that was a long time ago. And since then, some other events interfered and intruded into their lives. Stressful events. And those stressful events, such as for me, was the pandemic, and for thousands.
It was stressful for everybody.
Yeah.
Yes, and so because we were also scared about, and that's another thing, the fear of having enough to eat, enough food, drove many people into overeating, subconsciously so. It was an unconscious
coupling that with the need to be isolated also. I mean, you had your immediate family around you, but when disaster, you want your whole community to be with you when you're going through those things. And it was very difficult for everybody. Yeah.
Some of my clients also commented on the uncertainty they felt, that where is the end? Is there going to be an end? When is the end coming? Uncertainty is one of, I found, of many culprits of overeating, especially doing that emotional eating. It's one of major emotions, along with anger, loneliness, sadness, grief, boredom, that drives us into snacking. It doesn't seem like overeating. Right. I have clients that they don't even eat a plate of food in one day, but it's a continuous snacking for them. And at night, they snack more, and they snack on sugary things.
Without realizing why.
Yeah. So Eugenia, it sounds as though you're reading out my previous life story. because I had a huge weight problem for years and years and years. That was part of my journey into hypnosis, was losing the weight through self-hypnosis. So I can relate to everything you're saying about how clients are. And yes, it's in the subconscious. You eat without realizing it. You eat because you're afraid of something without realizing it. And in my case, weight was a kind of buffer. I felt more protected against the world
Yes,
with layers
yes.
of fat on.
Yes, women often feel that way, especially if they have had some trauma or some type of abuse trauma in their families.
Keep the predators away.
Exactly. And to go back to your question, Denise, because I'm digressing, I'm excited about this because I love hypnosis. I feel it's not a solution and an end all, but it's a solution to everything. But it certainly is a big, wonderful path to many solutions for people. So, and I'm very excited because I've seen tremendous results and the testimonials from clients. In fact, there's a testimonial on my website by Ruth, whose parents were in Treblinka at a concentration camp. And she lived in Fort Worth, in the very poor area, Jewish area of Fort Worth. And Ruth was a teacher, and she came because she had an addiction to Mexican food. I want you to know this is not unusual. In Texas, we have Mexican food everywhere.
So much.
Yes, and people love it. They eat it for breakfast, lunch, and dinner. So it is a big issue for people. And she, through hypnosis, as we were doing the hypnosis, she started crying. And I asked her, because we were doing some regression, going back to when it all started, finding out the root cause, bypassing the subconscious. That's what hypnosis does so beautifully. Your conscious mind wants to lose weight. Everybody wants to look good and be healthy. Who doesn't? But our subconscious mind is the biggest saboteur. That's what I say. It sabotages our goals, our desires, and our needs, because it doesn't know right from wrong.
Yeah, but it doesn't do it to hurt you. It does it because it wants to keep you safe. Keep everything safe and the same.
Yes, no
Very
change. So while Ruth, I questioned her through hypnosis what was going on, and she had seen in her mind herself eating her food and not finishing the food. She had 2-3 bites, and she told me, she says, I was a little kid and I never really liked a lot of food, and they ate a lot of the same starchy foods every day, like beans, potatoes, things made out of flour, and because they were very poor and they were
that's the cheap filling food.
Lots of carbs. And so she heard her mother started to cry and said, I want you to know, when I was your age, I was in Treblinka, because she had followed her parents, who died, by the way. And she said, and I didn't have any food. I was digging for weeds here and there and sucking on stones and rocks. And that's why it made a connection to her that if she loses that connection with her mother and the food, and of course she was finishing the plate after that, she would lose the love and the loyalty of her mother. She would seem disloyal to the mother.
It feels like a betrayal of her mother. So or naturally her mother wouldn't love her if she betrayed her.
Yes. The interesting thing is, after that hypnosis session, she texted me, and she has a testimonial, but I don't think she goes into details. And she said, today my sister and I went and had our usual Mexican food at our favorite restaurants. It was Esperanza's. And she said, my sister at some point says, Ruth, what are you doing? And I looked down, and I was breaking one nacho, the dry nachos. I came with a big bowl of salsa and hot sauce. I was breaking it into pieces and putting one piece at a time in my mouth. And my sister just died, she said, because by now I would have finished my bowl of nachos and I would have finished the bowl of salsa otherwise in the past. So she realized that hypnosis had an immediate effect on how she was looking at food. She was free. No more issues of betrayal, lack of love. And now she could love, and that's what we did. We reinstalled through hypnosis, we reinstalled a free love between her and her mother. Like, you love them unconditionally. There are no conditions. Food is not involved. And it was wonderful. I still get very kind of teary-eyed when I remember her. Yes. Yeah,
that's wonderful. Shame she didn't find you earlier, but it's wonderful. So tell me about this new group, though, because I haven't done much group work. I've done a little bit. I'm beginning to do a bit more.
Now I've done a pilot group. It went very well. I don't want to have more than 10 people for starters, and I don't think I'll be going up to more than 15. And it's people are women. They're all women. I think men need their place too, and I'm thinking that I will do that. I will start because I do see men for weight loss.
So it is a real group. It's not just a bunch of people who happen to be online at the same time. It's they're interacting with each other. Yeah.
Yes, some of them, I write a column in a local newspaper, so some of them found me through the column where I mentioned it, and others are my clients. I sent out some newsletter information, and they're all clients that probably didn't see me for weight loss. Maybe I think there is only a couple that they had seen me for weight loss like 25 years ago. So a long time ago. Yes, because I've been doing hypnosis since the mid-80s. In 1986, I saw my first client. Yeah. So, and when a client comes, not only I take their story, but I also ask them how, if they lose the weight, what would their life look like? And I have them in detail describe that. I also ask them what prompted them to make the decision to come to lose weight. That's very important because it speaks to the readiness of people and motivation. Yeah. So that is very, very, so, and then I think people get to start thinking and find more clarity when I ask the question about what it would be, how they visualize their life if they lost their weight. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that is something I do with my weight loss clients as well, Eugenia. Get them to describe in detail exactly how it will be when they have lost the weight. Not if, when they've lost the weight.
This is true for any goal, really. You have to be able to really see it so that it's just there. If I just keep going, it's just there. So how long ago, Martin, is it since you lost that first large amount of weight?
It's getting on for, is it 3-4 years now?
Yeah. How long were you heavy?
Congratulations.
Thank you. Thank you.
How long were you heavy? How long did you resist?
I was yo-yo dieting for 25 years, and each time I would lose the weight and then put more back on and some. And it got to the point where I was just huge, absolutely huge. But now I've just changed my relationship completely with food. It's a different thing altogether. I don't feel the same way about food that I used to. It was comfort, it was emotional comfort. And yes, that huge layer of fat, which I always reverted back to, I felt protected from the world with it.
Right. But I know that the people that you work with, once they've achieved their goal, they don't feel like they're on a diet and they have to stick to this, or it's all going to come crashing down. They're not
on a diet at all. That's what I tell them straight away. It's not a diet. Diets don't work. The minute your subconscious hears that you are on a diet, it also realizes at some point you will be off a diet. And the minute you come off a diet, you go back to how you were before. So we talk about when you lose the weight, when you've lost it, what will you be eating then? What will your typical day be like? What kind of foods will you eat then when you've lost the weight? And get them to really reinforce that in their thought patterns, and then tell them to start eating like that now. Because if they're overweight and they eat what they would need to eat to maintain when they've lost the weight, they will lose the weight with that.
Right.
And from day one, they're starting a new relationship with food.
Virginia, with your program, how long is your getting ready period? Do you start right with an individual client? I wish you could start right away, but if you've got clients who are waiting for the group to start, do you have a sort of pre-group start advice for them? Or?
I did a pilot group initially, more like a webinar, but it was a group. We talked about it. I'm very methodical of how I do. I believe in people's stories, and I have them send me. I sent intake forms out. There are 2 pages. They fill them out. They write me their goals, their medical history, everything. And then when I did the pilot, which was in the form of a webinar, I also asked each one of them, as I had already let them know via an email, and they agreed to tell me a little bit about themselves, and not necessarily their weight, but they, if they wanted to lose weight, how much they wanted to lose weight, and what was the culprit for them. Like, they don't cook. A lot of people here in Texas, they don't like to cook. They're used to fast food. We have an epidemic of fast food here. We definitely do.
And so many Mexican restaurants. It's a great food capital.
Yeah.
And a lot of other cuisines.
Over here too, Eugenia, Tex-Mex restaurants,
Yes.
And Taco Bell.
Oh, no.
Yeah.
If you're going to have Mexican food, have real Mexican food, please.
So the key that I stay with and I emphasize is I do very solid work when it comes to helping people, keeping it off, and changing their relationship with food. And it's a matter of mindset.
Absolutely.
So before, and I noticed myself always, when I gained the weight, well, when I was pregnant, it almost doesn't count because I was given permission to eat. Even though when I had my son, I gained like 20 pounds. But with my daughter, I felt differently. It was different. It was older. So it was 7 years later. But
there was a period in obstetrics when we were telling people to restrict their eating because people always ate for 2. But the second person is very small. It doesn't eat quite that many calories. And so it was very, very common for people to put on 40, 50 pounds when they were pregnant. So they stopped and it went the other way, as things so often do. Exactly. So they were restricting it to less than 25 pounds. And really 30 is much more reasonable. But getting it off is... It's so disappointing. You have a baby, the baby is 7-8 pounds, and you get on the scale and you weigh the same. I swear. That's so disappointing.
And one thing that I tune into is that we have to change that love-hate relationship about food and what foods are bad and foods are good. There's no food that's bad or good. There is only the portion and the time of the day you eat the food. And usually people who say, oh, I don't eat that, you hear again the second sentence, because when I start eating, I can't stop.
Can't stop,
So hypnosis is a wonderful tool to help people do away with that. I can't stop. You can eat and enjoy. I enjoy food. I'm a great cook. I cook even enchiladas. I cook Greek food. I cook French food, Italian food, but automatically, without thinking about it, totally subconsciously, I eat when I'm as much as
hungry
to satiate my hunger.
Yeah, recognizing when you're really hungry is a really key issue. Yeah.
Yes, and stopping when you are semi-full. So, and I remember when my son was little, my grandma, his grandmother, my mother, we were in Greece, says, George, I have another bite. And he said, no, Grandma, because I want to leave space just in case somebody offers me dessert.
Just in case.
Well, just in case. And I think that was a little dig for her. He was kind of trying to talk her into
little hypnotic suggestion.
Yes, yes. And my mother had struggled all her life with weight, and she said, oh, wow, he's a wise little kid. I wish I had thought of that. You know, it's wisdom. Leave a little room. That is important, you know. And the other thing that I tune into is we don't have to be desperate in losing weight, because desperation would do one thing, will increase, and it does. It increases the stress, and stress increases the stress hormone, which is called cortisol in the
You're
body.
fighting yourself.
Yeah.
And it's a never-ending battle, really. And we talk about that stress hormone, even we talk about how the stress hormone goes down, how we wind down at night, how we substitute another activity instead of food, all through hypnosis. I have a lot of hypnotic suggestions, which, as we know, hypnosis bypasses the conscious mind.
Yes,
you know,
exactly.
So it's purely with the subconscious.
It is so important to recognize hunger, recognize why you want to do this. You want to do this because you want to do this, not because of all the other things. I love Martin, when Martin talks about weight. You know where I'm going, right? Eat what you want.
Eat what you like, when you like, but what you like can change.
That's right.
That is really where we work.
The other thing I always say, Eugenia, is don't think about losing weight, because as human beings, we are not programmed to want to lose. We're programmed to want to gain things. So I say, don't think about losing weight. Think about gaining your health, gaining a better figure, gaining healthier habits. I never mention weight loss to people.
Yes, yes. In many ways, I do the same thing. I have them visualize and do wonderful visualizations, including with, bringing in nature as well, or their favorite happy place, and how they imagine themselves, even the clothes they would like to wear.
Yeah.
If they have the figure they want. So, and I do avoid talking about weight, the number, even though people are hung up on that, very hung up. I am more of a believer of your clothes. You put on your clothes.
So, Eugenia, we're going to put a link to your website in the show notes below the podcast, so people can find out more about your program, either individually or your group program. And you are available worldwide for clients, aren't you, via the internet, via Zoom?
I am. Right now, I'm seeing 2 people from Melbourne. One is a Greek Australian, the other is Australian. I see 3 people from Canada for hypnosis and coaching. I have like 7 people from Greece, 1 from Belgium, 2 from the UK, and 1 in Japan. He's American, and he just moved for a job there in Tokyo. So yeah,
truly international.
Lots of time zones to deal with.
Yeah, I was just thinking then, how do you cope with the time zones?
Yeah.
That's a little tough because, and I do some work on weekends, I will admit. And when I was in Greece for 3 months this past summer, almost 3 months, I would stay up until 1 or 2 o'clock in the morning to see my American clients.
Just self-care, my dear. We are going to have to leave. We have to say goodbye, because it's we're going to have to edit so much out on this. That's a shame. You'll have to come back and talk to us again soon. Maybe you can call us when you're on Athens next.
I like to make a point about the website. We're just designing a new one, but the one that's there, it's going to have the same URL with the one that's there. It does not talk yet about my group program, because it's so new. I just introduced it last week. So, but definitely has testimonials and everything else. And of course, the new one is going to be launched in the next 2 weeks.
Good.
Yeah,
Thank you
it's
so
fun.
much.
Yeah, thank you so
Eugenia.
much for
Thank
joining
you.
us, Eugenia. That's been fantastic.
Thank you for having me. It was a
Bye-bye.
pleasure.
You're very welcome.
We hope you've enjoyed listening. Please remember, this podcast is designed to give you an insight into therapeutic hypnosis and is for educational purposes only. So remember, consult with your own healthcare professional if you think something you've heard may apply to you or a loved one.
If you found this episode useful, you can apply for free continuing professional development or CME credits using the link provided in the show notes. Feel free to contact either of us through the links in the show notes. Join us again next week.